Are you a first-time home buyer or someone buying a home in this housing market using an FHA loan or a VA loan and not getting the results that you want? You're not getting your offer accepted. In some cases, you're not even getting a response from the seller. What's going on? Well, that's the question that a lot of you guys have reached out to ask me to address, that you're using an FHA loan and or a VA loan when trying to purchase a property, but you're not getting your offer accepted, even when you feel like you're submitting a very, very strong offer. Well, I want to take some time and discuss it, right? Because there are definitely some misconceptions when it comes to FHA and VA loans that unfortunately a lot of people don't truly understand. In addition, there's also something that you as a buyer sign when you're using an FHA loan and a VA loan that you submit along with your offer that could actually be hurting you. Now, unfortunately, it's required, but it might be the reason that your offer is not getting accepted and the reason that you may want to consider a conventional loan in this market if you're able to qualify. So I want to start today's video by introducing myself. My name is Jeb Smith. I'm a real estate broker here in Southern California. My channel is all about real estate, so do me a favor. If you like content like this, hit that subscribe button. So when putting in an offer in this market, you need to know what type of market that you're in, right? It's a very, very competitive housing market, as you probably know at this point, which means that a lot of properties are selling above the asking price against multiple offers. In some cases, the seller and or the listing agent is asking you to waive the appraisal contingency, and you may be doing that and still not getting the response that you want. So what is going on? Are FHA loans bad? Are VA loans bad? Should you be using something else? Well, we're going to talk about the misconceptions at first, right? Because unfortunately, there is this perception when it comes to VA loans and FHA loans that isn't necessarily true, but it's one that you're going to have to get over, and one that your agent that's representing you is going to have to convey to the other side in order to help you get your offer accepted in some cases. So there's this idea that if you're using a VA loan and or an FHA loan, that you're not a well-qualified buyer in some cases, because VA allows you to purchase at 100% financing without basically any money down outside of closing cost. And FHA loans only require a 3.5% minimal down payment, which means that you don't really have a lot of skin in the game. Now, you could have plenty of money in the bank. You could be a very, very well-qualified buyer and you're just choosing to go this route for whatever reason. But unfortunately, the listing agent on the other side is the one that is, helping the seller understand the offers. And in a lot of cases, unfortunately, the listing agents don't truly understand VA loans and FHA loans. So unfortunately, that is a hurdle that you have to overcome. Your agent should be making that call to the other side to convey that you're a well-qualified client in the case that you are. And in some cases, if you're using a VA loan that maybe you have the money for a down payment, but you're choosing to use VA because it allows you to purchase at 100% financing and you're trying to leverage yourself, if you will. So that is the first thing that as a buyer, you're having to overcome in a market like we're in right now, because chances are you're up against other offers. In some cases, offers that are putting 5% down, 10% down, maybe 20% down. And so when a listing agent looks at the offers and they see an FHA loan with 3.5% down or a VA loan putting 0% down, and then they also see a buyer putting 20% down, the idea immediately for most people is that the person putting 20% down is more qualified because they're putting more money down than the person that's putting less money down. And if you're looking at it just at face value, yeah, that looks that looks to be true, but that's not always the case. There are VA buyers and FHA buyers that have a much lower debt to income ratio than those using a conventional loan putting 20% down. And FHA and VA allow you to have a higher debt to income ratio. So in those cases, you might actually be more qualified than the person putting more money down. But unless your agent's able to convey that and show that and help the other agent understand that, it's really going to go nowhere. But in addition to that, you have one problem when using FHA and VA loans that you can't really overcome. And that is something called an amendatory clause. When you purchase a property or you're buying a property, putting an offer in on a property, part of the documents that you sign in order to purchase that property or submit your offer is a purchase agreement, right? A residential purchase agreement. But when you're using an FHA or a VA loan to buy that property, there's also something called an amendatory clause that you have to include with the contract when submitting your offer. That amendatory clause basically states, in layman terms, that if the property does not appraise, that you don't have to move forward as a buyer. So let's go back to the same equation where, a listing agent has multiple offers on a property, and you as a buyer have said, you know what, I'll waive my appraisal contingency, or they've countered you back and they've asked you to waive your appraisal contingency. And in order to be competitive, because you like the property, you agree to waive that appraisal contingency using an FHA loan and or a VA loan. But what you don't understand is that, even though you've waived that appraisal contingency, that amendatory clause still gives you an opportunity to back out because it's federal versus a state contract, right? So that amendatory clause supersedes the idea that you're able to, or that you're willing to waive the appraisal contingency, which means that if that property didn't appraise for whatever reason, you would still have an opportunity to back out. So think of that from the listing agent's perspective. I've got a couple of offers. Everybody's is willing to waive that appraisal contingency, but yours is an FHA loan and or a VA loan, and you've agreed to waive that appraisal contingency. But I know as a listing agent that you have that amendatory clause essentially almost as a cop-out if it doesn't appraise. That, as a listing agent, would discourage me in some cases from potentially accepting that offer, because if I've got somebody else that's willing to waive it, they don't have that fallback, if you will, then that other deal looks to be more solid if the property doesn't appraise than those using an FHA loan or a VA loan. So that's part of the problem right now, is that, even though you're willing to do things and waive, appraisals and what have you, in some cases your contract is still keeping you or giving you an opportunity to back out if that appraisal doesn't come in. And listing agents, sellers aren't willing to take that risk in this market when they have other offers. So that's part of the problem. And as I mentioned a moment ago, the other part of the problem is agents not truly understanding FHA loans and VA loans. And that's why it's important that you work with a professional agent, as I've mentioned in many, many videos, that can have that conversation with the listing agent and help explain, your offer, as well as, how qualified you are, and understand that doesn't mean that you're going to get the property. In an environment right now where it's very, very competitive, it's hard to get offers accepted, even with well-qualified clients. I mean, I've recently listed a couple of properties and that's had multiple offers on them, and every single buyer that submitted an offer had at least 20% down. So can you imagine? I've got 13 offers, all with 20% down, and then there's one that has a minimal down payment. It just looks as if that person isn't as qualified as those that have the down payment. In addition, when these properties are selling way above and beyond the ask price, if you have only a minimal down payment, do you have the funds to make up the difference if the property doesn't appraise? That's the question. And even if you do have those funds, you still have an opportunity to back out of the contract based on that amendatory clause. So that's part of the problem right now in this market using FHA and VA, and you need to understand that. They're not bad loans. In fact, they're really, really good loans. The VA loans are for those who have served in the military, and those of you who are watching that are using a VA loan or have served, I appreciate your service. But understand, in this environment, it's hard in some cases to get those accepted versus someone putting a larger amount down. The same thing goes with FHA loans. I've had a lot of clients use FHA loans to get into property, and they've been able to build wealth over time through their property and use that equity to buy something larger and what have you. They're not bad loans just because you're putting minimal down, but Unfortunately, when you're in this environment, they're very hard to compete against those putting a larger amount down. So just keep that in mind when you're out there looking. Don't get discouraged just because your offer is not getting accepted. Just understand the environment that you're in. And as more inventory comes to the market, hopefully that drops a little bit of the buyer demand, and it gives you an opportunity to be competitive and potentially get your offer accepted. So hopefully that was helpful. But if you do have additional questions about FHA loans, VA loans, or even conventional loans, or maybe you want to get referred to a mortgage professional that can help qualify you and make sure that you're fully pre-approved, reach out to me directly. I'm happy to help. And if you need a real estate agent, I can definitely guide you in that direction as well. But for now, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Appreciate the support. Hope to see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.